Hello, I'm Jelelle Awen, and this is day 10 of 33 days in this video series I'm doing, showing up every day for a video, and I'm calling it Deepen. So wherever you are in the series, maybe you've been with me from the beginning every single day, or you're just dipping in to day 10, you should be, or hopefully you are, experiencing a sense of deepening awareness and connection to your inner world. So we've already been to some interesting places just in 10 days. We've met the 3D, 4D, and 5D self. We've connected with your inner protector. We've connected with your ascension chakras and their various states of being. And today we're going to go into the Metasoul. And I've been mentioning Metasoul along the way, and if you follow me in my writings, then you probably have some familiarity with what I mean by that. Yet I wanted to do this video as an introduction to Metasoul and to also provide a guided meditation for you to start connecting with yours. So the Metasoul, when I refer to that, I'm referring beyond just this life, incarnation, and the soul energies that come through. I'm referring to your higher self, individuated soul source. So we could say way up there. So as we split off from the divine, the picture I've been offered is that then we split into larger groups of souls. Some people call those monads, and those can be thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of souls come from those, and then split off from those, I feel, are the Metasoul. And the Metasoul in the picture I've been offered is not shared with anybody else. This is your particular Metasoul, although you see in the picture how you could be in a soul group above that, or a monad with somebody else. And I think that's where the soul family feeling comes from. When I refer to Metasoul, and I was given the name Metasoul by Metatron, because it's beyond or above the soul. We use the soul as such a common word, and it means specific things to people. So I wanted something that when you said it would have a specific meaning. And that meaning is off of the soul groups, you then fragmented off and became your own individuated soul. So my sense is that this is where we became individuals, where we split off more from the all. Still very high vibrational frequency. I don't get a picture of the exact dimensional frequency, but up there. So from that high vibrational frequency, then the Metasoul fragmented off, split off into all these other timelines, lifetimes, and these timelines span, your Metasoul timelines span a range of time periods, eras, planets, galaxies, species, dimensional frequency, all kinds of possibilities. And really, it feels like limitless possibilities. I also feel parallel universes as well. Again, I do get the picture, though, that the Metasoul is just your soul. It's not shared with somebody else's. So that is one of the distinctions that I make about it. So the Metasoul, when we look at it that way, we start seeing that our incarnational cycles are actually not linear at all, but rather simultaneous. I just said that word wrong, but I think you know what I mean. At the same time. So as we're splitting off from our Metasoul, maybe our Metasoul lands in ancient Egypt, we could call it, and another Metasoul lands in the future, and another lands in this time, and another, I'm just saying land, incarnates into a galactic frequency, Pleiadian frequency. but they're actually all happening in the same time space. So as we try to get our 3D minds around that, one of the distinctions I make is that I don't feel there are past lives, but actually other lifetimes, other timelines. And they range from extremely traumatizing, karmic, very dense timelines, lifetimes where there's a lot to heal and feel, all the way up to timelines that are very high in frequency. I believe even the angelic, we all have we have angelic aspects as well, and that's why we connect to particular ones. So there's a broad range in terms of density and frequency of what our metasoul is expressing. So what becomes so challenging about this is that we have all of these energies of our metasoul spread out over all these varying timelines, going through their own reality, going through their own crises and their own traumas, and expressing, in some cases, extreme gifts that when we can access both those in the higher frequencies and be with and help heal those in the karmic ones, what starts to happen is that we unify our metasoul again. So this is a conscious unification. It's looking at the fact that our soul fragmented because we chose to have it fragment, because why not? It is an interesting learning experiment, just like we are a fragment or fracture from the divine. So that fragmenting just continues as you get denser in frequency, leading to what I feel is the 3D version of this fragmentation, and that's the parts that we acknowledge. So when I say a part, I'm referring to the inner protector, the inner child, the inner teenager. Some of these parts we're already introducing you to. When we're looking at a metasoul fragmentation, though, it's different. It's not based in this timeline, and it's not based in this body and this psyche. And it's taken me a while in my own process and a lot of downloading to be able to present this picture in a coherent way. It's been kind of, in my own process, stumbling along, applying the parts work that I know and love so much. I would meet an aspect from another timeline and I just couldn't call it a past life. I couldn't just relate with it, drop into it one time, feel its trauma, and then move on. I just felt, I want to have a relationship. And that began for me with an Avalonian aspect named Morgaine, whose archetypally used to be in the Morgaine Le Fay archetype and is now ascended. That archetype, which is what I believe we're meant to do with archetypes, is eventually ascend them. So meeting Morgaine began this journey into my metasoul. It was really, she really, as this priestess energy, helped introduce me to some of the other aspects in it. So this has begun quite the journey over the last 3 or 4 years, where most of my process has been focused on the unification of my soul. And as each metasoul aspect comes forward, as they become known, and they've ranged from a Pleiadian to an Arcturian to an Egyptian, ancient Egyptian, to an East Indian. I actually have to keep a spreadsheet to track them all. But there's a relationship to each of them. I feel them. I feel where they are. I get teleported to their timeline and they get teleported to mine. And what starts happening is a merging of our consciousness. They actually, I call something a bleed through. I feel a metasoul timeline is bleeding through when we're not aware of it, when we're not conscious of it, and it's bleeding. It's kind of like an internal bleed where it's causing some trauma, but we haven't addressed it. We haven't healed it. So a bleed through becomes an opportunity for either karmic healing or to receive a whole boost of soul gifts when you start turning your consciousness to it. And working with metasoul aspects seems to be a really effective way to do that. So one of the things when I'm doing sessions with people is it's really clear usually where the timelines are bleeding through. Often it has to do with either a lot of trauma or terror or suicidal feelings or depression, or they're just they keep seeing the same scenes over and over, and they're not from this life. Or they're really drawn to particular time periods. Those timelines come through in one way or another. So it could be, if it's star family timelines or galactic, you're usually really drawn to sci-fi movies and that kind of thing. Or you may be very drawn to ancient Egypt and studying about that, or Greece or Rome. You can get some sense of that by what you're drawn to, and that is most likely your Metasoul and these other aspects that need your attention. A lot of people are aware they've been dropped into a timeline, either through past life regression therapy, some form of hypnosis. They've tasted, I feel that's a taste. It's a drop in to a soul retrieval, that kind of thing, where you're dropped into the aspect, and usually the trauma. And it's interesting to me because often in these practices you get dropped right into the trauma. And what I feel is that doesn't allow for digestion of what's occurring. So you're dropped into this aspect, you're dropped into its reality. Usually it's very traumatizing and there's a lot of tears and it feels like movement. But then your consciousness isn't actually bridged to that aspect. So it kind of fades away. You're aware that there's a lot of trauma. My gosh, I was burned at the stake, or I was hung, or I was shot, or I killed a bunch of people. That's what people will tell me. But they won't have any way to have a relationship with it. So they're that traumatizes them. So I feel like there's a next level we can go to here. A deepening level of connection with these Metasoul aspects, not seeing them as past lives, but rather that they're happening now, and that they're personalities, and that they are sisters and brothers from the same soul source as us, but they're not us. So I try to help people no longer say I, pretty much around everything. So it's no longer I about feelings, it's which part is that, or which Metasoul aspect is that. Because as soon as you can do that, you can get space from the reactions and from the feeling tones. So I've had people who've had extremely traumatic things happen in other timelines to their Metasoul sister or brother, and we've seen it, and I've helped them be a witness to it. We move the timeline forward, or back usually, to a more peaceful time in that Metasoul's existence. For example, a Metasoul that has been persecuted, burned at the stake, which millions were, we would not land right in the middle of that burning, but we would actually go to another time and meet that aspect when it was more at peace and where its joy was, probably having something to do with magic and being in magic. And then we would get to know them in an ongoing relationship. And eventually, another beautiful aspect of this Metasoul work is that they might not even choose to be burnt anymore through working with them. However, they were betrayed. Maybe it was by a lover, maybe it was by a family member. That's usually the case. Is there some kind of betrayal karmic thing going on? That Metasoul might choose differently and leave the village before it ever happens. So this is a really exciting aspect of this work that I've been opened out to more recently, is actually changing the timelines so that there really isn't any history in that way. A big one that I'm going to cover in a whole video is the Lemurian and Atlantis falling. And I've been working in my own Metasoul to choose not to fall with Atlantis. My Metasoul aspect has moved way before that happened, and I've been working with some other people as well to change that karma for them, which we feel, of course, helps change it collectively. It's kind of like asking the question, what if Atlantis doesn't fall? And what if I didn't get burned at the stake? What if my Metasoul didn't experience that trauma? So we start getting into really quantum possibilities here, where we are the creators, and our metasoul gets more and more empowered as it gets unified. Makes sense, right? Because we're freeing up these aspects that have been in karmic trauma, and we're also connecting to these higher dimensional beings, not just as a galactic council, not just as an archangel, but very specifically, this is your Arcturian Metasoul aspect. She's your sister. So what's her name? And connect with her and get to know her. To make it more personal. A lot of the channelings to me are very impersonal. Even that person that's channeling, it doesn't feel like they have much of a personal connection with the energies they're channeling. So there's a distancing to it. So we can bring all of this closer. The main way we do that is through working with our gatekeeper, which I'm going to do a whole video about soon. So I won't get too much into the gatekeeper today, but that is an aspect of our metasoul. It's kind of a universal aspect of the metasoul that holds the veil in place, that knows about all the timelines, but often has its own kind of version of amnesia, where it's difficult for it to track the different timelines. So we'll get into the gatekeeper very soon. But what I want to do today, this is kind of a beginning bridge for you to start to bridge to your metasoul, to start to open out this space so you can begin to become more aware of these timelines and how they may be operating and open in your life. So, as always, let's go ahead and close our eyes. Start to bring our focus inward. You may already feel an activation on the metasoul level in me talking about it. And if you've been doing this series, then you're connecting to particularly your upper chakras, which is a very important aspect of opening the metasoul and lifting the veil. So we'll bring in Archangel Metatron today as divine masculine support, and Goddess Sophia as feminine, to help us with clarities and deeper soul connection. They're also very connected to the Akashic records, which I actually feel is kind of ingrained in our DNA, less than a place to go, but actually our metasoul is kind of our Akashic records. So the metasoul itself holds the access to these timelines. I'm kind of feeling there's a weaving in of the meditative space and some teaching today that will continue to roll out. What I'm seeing, actually, it's interesting, Metatron's wanting to take us to the Akashic library, is what he calls it. So we'll go there. We have white light around us. I see let's walk up some stairs to start raising our frequency to visit the Akashic library, which is in the lower to upper fourth dimension, at least as I've seen it. As you start walking up the stairs, you can even count them if you want to. Just feel your frequency start to lighten. surrounded by white light. Letting go of density or heaviness from the day. When you feel like you should stop and you don't want to go higher, we're going to turn to our left and walk through a door. And that's opening out into these beautiful gardens. There's a fountain. It's kind of a golden shimmer in the air. There's a feeling of wisdom and peace and clarity to the energy here. And I'm seeing to the left of the fountain the Akashic library. So we'll go inside. I like to see it, I think people see it in different ways, but I like to see it as kind of an old-fashioned library with those bound books in different colors, reds and golds and greens, and the bookcases go all the way up to the ceiling and they're floating in the air. Almost like something you'd see out of a Harry Potter movie, which is lower 4D. So take in this library. It's a wonderful portal to the Metasoul. You might feel your inner protector here. Maybe he was standing at the doorway. Invite him to come in with us. You probably get a sense as you're standing here of the vastness of humanity. Not just humanity, I should say, the vastness of the Metasoul and all of its limitless expression. It can be a little overwhelming. But we're going to narrow in on your records, your book. So as you take the room in, one of the books will start glowing for you. Start pulsating with light. And it may be across the room that you have to go travel to. In the Akashic Library, there isn't gravity, so you could fly up to go see your book and take it in. I'll let you do that. If you can't locate your specific records, that's okay too. You can just take in the energy today. As you go toward your records in your book, go ahead and open it. And you might immediately get an image or a message that comes to you from another timeline. So not this life. Maybe it's a movie that you recently saw that connects to Native American or Lemurian or Egyptian or Civil War, just anything historic, quote unquote. Or it could be a painting that you love. It could be a conversation that you've had with someone. It could be a dream you've had recently. Just let in for a moment whatever wants to come. And this is how we're going to connect with this today, as if it's a picture in a book or a story in a book. It's a beginning connection. So we're not going to drop into the trauma and the pain right in this moment. We're just going to start to get a sense of the story and the setting. So whatever's coming to you, try not to judge it. Just let it come through, and it may also come with some emotion. If the book, peace, visualization, teleportation isn't working for you, also another one can be portals or doorways. Usually the gatekeeper is watching those pretty carefully, but you may, if you shift your energy out of the library, you may see a door in front of you that appears, and you can walk through that door and to get a sense of a timeline. And again, we're not wanting to necessarily drop right into the trauma of that timeline, but more get a feeling for it. So you may walk through the door and just see a meadow or a forest, or just start to get, or a pyramid, some sense of the setting. Or a light ship. So you can use either the book as a portal in the library, or start to connect to your own portals, which we will be doing more of in the series. So whichever timeline you're now connected to, just disengage from it. Pull your energy back into yourself. Close the book or close the door. That part's important, especially in the beginning connection, so that the energies, if they have been bleeding through, it may lessen. Really, that Metasoul aspect is wanting to be felt and digest its experience. So if you've had a very compelling and meaningful experience just now, this is something you'll want to go back into and find your Metasoul aspect, create a connection with them. This is what we help you do in sessions. You can do it on your own, yet the practice and the templating and the directing intuitively can be really helpful when it comes to Metasoul work. Okay, I'm actually getting that we'll come out of the library, stand by the fountain, let the water from the fountain purify our energy from whatever we just took in. And open your eyes. I usually feel a little disorientation when I open my eyes, but today it's quite strong. So we definitely feels like went to the Akashic Library. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If that's your first time there, to me there's nothing particularly special about being able to go there and access it. It's just a matter of the veil continuing to lift and being ready to feel and heal whatever needs to be in your karmic timelines. So I hope that was meaningful for you. That's kind of a taste of the Metasoul. And tomorrow, I kept saying in yesterday's video that it was 111 tomorrow, but it's actually tomorrow, if that makes sense. So tomorrow will be 111. I will connect to those energies, offer a guided meditation, and we'll download some of those 111 codes, which are usually quite empowering and about new directions and new beginnings. So it should be a really good experience. And thank you for joining me today. I'll see you tomorrow.